hold on a minute. 2 games in, new team jersey, same old story. Luka Dončić is putting up numbers against the Timberwolves that are, frankly, well, jaw-dropping.
They really are. Just relentless.
The Lakers managed to snag a win, yeah, and even the series. But let's be real. When one player dominates this completely against a top defense, you have to ask, are the Lakers just along for Luka's ride? Forget about the team for a second. Is Minnesota even playing against the Lakers, or are they locked in a battle with, like, a singular force of nature?
That's a great way to put it.
Welcome to the deep dive. We are laser focused today on these first 2 explosive games between the Lakers and the Timberwolves. We've sifted through the game tapes, the expert breakdowns, to bring you the crucial insights.
Yep, dug into the numbers and the analysis.
Our mission today is simple, really. To dissect Luka Doncic's overwhelming impact and figure out if this series is even a contest beyond his individual brilliance.
It's almost like a continuation of a movie we've seen before, just, with a different supporting cast.
Right, like the 2024 finals.
Exactly. If you remember back to the 2024 Western Conference Finals, Doncic, even then wearing different colors, absolutely dictated the terms against this very Timberwolves defense.
The numbers were insane.
Think about it. Over 32 points, close to 10 rebounds, 8 assists a game. Shooting lights out from everywhere. That's conference finals MVP level stuff.
No question.
And here we are just a few months later, and through the first 2 games in a Lakers uniform, he's averaging, an astounding 34 points. The change of scenery hasn't changed his impact one bit, not against Minnesota anyway.
Okay, so it's not just that the points are there, it's how he's getting them that's so telling, right? The analysis highlights his clear strategy, attacking Rudy Gobert in isolation.
Straight at him.
For a defensive anchor like Gobert, that's a pretty direct challenge, and it seems to be working.
It really does.
He's also consistently getting the better of Jaden McDaniels, a guy known for locking down opposing stars.
Yeah, McDaniels is a top-tier defender.
And in Game 2, he was, a single assist away from a 31-point triple-double. Just incredible stuff.
Almost had it.
This leads to the big question everyone's asking. You hear it on TNT, everywhere. Are the Lakers leaning too heavily on these Doncic isolation plays?
That's the debate.
Even though he's succeeding, is that like a sustainable strategy as the series wears on, or could it become predictable? What are your initial thoughts on that balance?
It raises a really interesting point about the long game. While Doncic's talent in isolation is just, undeniable, relying too much on one-on-one situations can become physically demanding and, like you said, potentially easier for the defense to anticipate as the series progresses.
Right, they might load up more.
Exactly. However, the fact that he's consistently beating high-caliber defenders like Gobert and McDaniels in these situations, it suggests a fundamental mismatch that, frankly, the Lakers are smart to exploit.
Okay.
You see, Minnesota's defensive philosophy under Coach Finch typically involves single coverage, right? They trust their individual defenders.
Yeah, that's their MO.
Doncic is essentially putting that trust to the ultimate test, and so far he's passing with flying colors. But the question of whether they should rely so heavily on it, that's definitely something to keep an eye on.
Let's shift gears then to the Timberwolves side for a moment. They snagged Game 1, but the analysis we've looked at calls it fool's gold. That's a pretty harsh assessment.
It is harsh, but maybe accurate.
What made that win so potentially misleading about their overall strength in this matchup, especially against a Doncic-led Lakers team?
The fool's gold label really comes down to, statistical improbability. In Game 1, the Timberwolves hit an unusually high number of three-pointers, 21 of them.
21, that's huge.
Yeah, and Jaden McDaniels had an offensive explosion, scoring 25 points and missing only 2 shots.
Which is just not him, usually.
Exactly. Now, if we take a step back, that's not really characteristic of this Timberwolves team. They aren't typically a high-volume, high-percentage three-point shooting team, And McDaniels' primary role is on the defensive end. He usually scores in the 10, 12-point range, maybe. So while that offensive outburst secured them a win, expecting that level of performance to be the norm was likely unrealistic. It felt like an outlier.
And Game 2 really hammered that point home, didn't it?
Big time.
They went from hitting 21 threes to just 5 out of 25. McDaniel's scoring plummeted to 8 points, and he couldn't connect from deep at all.
0 for 3 from 3.
Yeah. It sounds like once those unusual offensive performances corrected themselves, regression to the mean, basically their offense really struggled outside of Anthony Edwards. And KT had a good game too, right?
Yeah, Towns played well. Randall had a playoff high 27, actually.
Yeah.
But Yeah, beyond Edwards and him, the secondary scoring just wasn't there in Game 2.
What does that tell us about their offensive consistency beyond their main stars compared to the Lakers?
Well, exactly. What's fascinating here is how reliant the Timberwolves can be on those secondary scoring options hitting their shots. When they don't, the offensive burden falls squarely on Edwards.
A lot of pressure on Ant.
Yeah, and even when he puts up a good scoring night, as he did with 25 in Game 2, it might not be enough if the supporting cast goes cold. This really underscores a potential weakness compared to the Lakers, who, beyond Doncic, have LeBron James and Austin Reeves, both capable of creating their own offense and making plays for others.
Interesting contrast. Okay, this leads us to a tactical decision by the Lakers that's raising some eyebrows. Their willingness to essentially go without a traditional center for significant stretches.
The small ball approach.
Yeah. Jackson Hayes has had foul trouble, wasn't a huge factor scoring or rebounding, but the analysis suggests the small ball approach might actually be working to their advantage against a dominant center like Rudy Gobert. Can you explain why that might be the case in this specific matchup?
It seems counterintuitive, but the advantage for the Lakers in going small against Gobert really boils down to Gobert's offensive limitations within the Timberwolves system.
Okay, how so?
He's not a high-usage offensive player.
Right.
Like, he doesn't demand the ball in the post, and the Timberwolves' plays aren't really designed to feature him heavily on that end.
So they're not punishing the smaller lineup.
Right. And then defensively, while he's an elite rim protector, we know that, he could be less effective when he's forced to switch onto quicker perimeter players like Doncic or James.
He's caught in space.
Exactly. So by going small, the Lakers essentially negate Gobert's size advantage on offense because he's not being utilized there much anyway, and they force him into more uncomfortable defensive scenarios where he has to guard out on the floor. As the analysis we saw put it kind of succinctly, in this particular matchup, it's advantage Lakers.
It's almost counterintuitive, isn't it? You'd expect a 3-time DPOY to be this huge asset, but the way the Lakers are playing seems to, I don't know, minimize his impact on both ends.
In this specific matchup, yeah. It's a fascinating dynamic.
Now let's talk about the benches. Game 1 saw this massive difference, right? Wolves reserves outscored the Lakers bench by a whopping 30 points.
43-13, yeah. Huge gap.
But in Game 2, the script completely flipped. The Wolves bench kind of became a ghost, as one report put it. What accounted for this dramatic shift?
Well, what's fascinating is the inconsistency we're seeing. It's just wild. In Game 1, Naz Reid was like a revelation for Minnesota, right? 23 points, looked unstoppable.
He was incredible in Game 1.
But then in Game 2, he was practically a non-factor. Scoreless through 3 quarters, got into early foul trouble, only hit 1 3 late.
Total turnaround. And DiVincenzo for LA.
Yeah, similar story in reverse almost. Dante DiVincenzo for the Lakers, who was okay in Game 1, really struggled with fouls, picked up 4, and only made 1 shot in 16 minutes in Game 2. This volatility, it really highlights the unpredictable nature of bench play in the playoffs. Adjustments from game to game, increased defensive intensity, it can significantly impact the player's rhythm and effectiveness.
Yeah, it shows you can't always rely on that spark off the bench to be consistent night after night.
Definitely not, especially in a tough playoff series.
So, beyond the star power, it seems both teams are experiencing these significant swings in performance from their role players. But one thing that seems consistent across both games is the defensive intensity.
Oh yeah, you feel it watching.
Both games have been relatively low scoring. Lakers put up 95, then 94 points. Coach Redick even called it a potential rock fight.
Yeah, I saw that quote. Fits the vibe.
What's fueling this defensive focus, and how is it shaping the series so far?
Well, if we connect this to the bigger picture, the physicality and defensive pressure in Game 1 clearly set the tone.
Yeah.
Minnesota came out physical.
They definitely did.
And the Lakers, who, let's be honest, have been criticized defensively sometimes, have clearly made an effort to match that intensity. Austin Reeves said it directly, right?
Yeah.
Their emphasis was to play harder, match physicality with physicality.
Makes sense. You have to respond.
And we saw the impact. Low first quarter points for the Wolves in Game 2, only 15. The Lakers' own offensive struggles in the second half of that game, just 36 points. Both teams also struggled significantly from 3 in both games, around 20%. That could be a testament to tight perimeter defense.
So defense is definitely dictating things. But what stands out offensively, or maybe the lack thereof?
Well, the difference in creators, maybe. It feels like the Lakers have more guys who can generate offense. Even in a defensive battle, you have Reeves, Doncic, and James. Whereas Timberwolves seem to primarily rely on Edwards to break down defenses one-on-one, or in pick and roll.
That's a good point. More options for LA when things bog down.
Potentially, yeah.
And despite some of those offensive struggles, LeBron James sounded pretty optimistic, didn't he? Said they were getting good looks, trust their percentages will come around.
Yeah, typical LeBron confidence.
Yeah.
Believes in their process.
But given that the Timberwolves seem keyed in defensively, and the Lakers are relying so heavily on Doncic, what adjustments do you think either team needs to make offensively to gain a more consistent edge as this series progresses? What are you looking for in games 3 and beyond?
That's the million-dollar question right now, isn't it?
Yeah.
The Lakers' advantage in having multiple creators, like we just said, suggests they have more potential pathways to score, even when the defense is tight. Maybe lean into that more.
Get LeBron and Reeves more involved off-ball, perhaps.
Yeah, perhaps more off-ball action or different pick-and-roll variations to make them less predictable than just Luka ISO all the time. For the Timberwolves, the key will likely be finding more consistent secondary scoring. That Game 1 felt like lightning in a bottle.
Can't count on 21 threes again.
Probably not. And maybe exploring different ways to utilize Gobert offensively, even if it's just as a screener and roller to free up others more effectively. They might also need to get more creative with their off-ball movement generally, just to generate easier looks against that Lakers D.
Okay, so to sum it all up, Luka Doncic's dominance. It just continues to be the central storyline here, even in a Lakers uniform. Game 1's offensive fireworks from Minnesota. Looks like an outlier.
Seems that way.
The Lakers' small ball strategy is surprisingly effective against Gobert in this matchup. Bench performances have been a total roller coaster for both sides.
Up and down, yeah.
And this series is definitely shaping up to be a physical, defensively focused battle. A real grind.
Absolutely. Low scores, tough possessions.
But the big question we started with still hangs there. Even with this series tied 1-1, is Luka Doncic's individual brilliance enough to consistently carry the Lakers past a strong defensive team like Minnesota? Or are we seeing a fundamental mismatch that the Wolves need to figure out, and fast? What do you think, listening to this?
Yeah, considering the defensive intensity we've seen and the clear reliance on star power, especially on the Lakers side with Luka, what do you believe is the most sustainable path to victory for either of these teams as this series unfolds?
Is it a tactical masterstroke waiting to be unveiled?
Or maybe a player who just needs to step up their performance consistently? Or is it something else entirely? Lots to think about.
Some crucial questions to consider as the series heads to Minnesota for Game 3. If you found this deep dive into the Lakers-Timberwolves matchup valuable, be sure to like and subscribe for more in-depth analysis of the games that matter.
We appreciate the support.
And we want to hear from you too. Head down to the comment section and let us know your thoughts. Are the Lakers truly in this series beyond the brilliance of Luka Dončić? We'll be reading.